Okay, huge welcome to the Empower People Now Summit. This is session 1, and I am Sabine Matharu. I am going to lead you through this session, and I'm also the founder of the Empowerment Portal, which is actually an online platform for organizations to help their employees through business and life challenges they are facing. And I think we all agree that especially in these times when there's been a lot of disruption and uncertainty, it's even more so important to look at the person holistically. And I don't know if Sharon, maybe we can pin myself or find me somewhere on the screen. So there we go. I just saw that I wasn't visible. There I am. So I've quickly introduced myself. So I just want to introduce what we're doing today. If you go to the next slide, we actually, just a bit about the Empowerment Portal, we actually consist of around 50 experts ranging from leadership coaches to mental wellness practitioners, as well as career consultants and business growth strategists. And we at the Empowerment Portal believe that organizational strength lies in its people, and its growth, the growth of the organization can be very much enabled much quicker by supporting and empowering the employees holistically. And really, through our annual summit, which is happening right now, we are celebrating our collaborators, and that's happening obviously once a year, where we showcase their expertise and bring tangible value for HR leaders. So let's go to the next slide, which is the introduction to this session. So we came up with a range of different topics that we believe HR leaders are really in need of right now, really topics that are relevant right now, especially post-pandemic, and looking at the new situation and how we can actually look at what's going on in organizations and help you guide, give you some ideas. So we have 4 amazing speakers today. Blended working is the topic. I'm going to just also introduce Sharon Bowes, who is my co-partner, founder in the Empowerment Portal. Maybe you can just say a quick hello, Sharon, from you as well.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Sabine. This is amazing. What we've got together here, and our incredible collaborators. So I'm so excited to introduce them to our audience, and to whoever is listening on the recording as well, for ages. It's such an exciting experience. Our last year's one was phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to this year's one as well.
Yes, you're right. Last year's was amazing contributions, amazing discussions and energy as well. And I'm sure this is going to be the same. So we've got in the room 4 fabulous speakers, and I'm introducing them in this order. So we have, just to make sure, Carol Williams, who is a productivity coach, and she actually helps people work fewer hours and get more done. So she will actually share some of the tips and ideas that she's got. Then we have Jackie Tilliard, who helps people to get back on track with certainty, confidence, and credibility. And she herself has an incredible backstory. So I'm really excited what she's got to say, because she's been through a lot in the pandemic and has helped so many people. And then we have Dr. Paul Snowden, who consults with leaders to improve team performance and increase the effectiveness of workplace coaching. And last but not least, we have Cliff Taylor, who is an executive coach and also an HR professional. So he will have lots and lots of case studies and ideas in regards to the current situation when it comes to hybrid working, blended working, and how, yeah, and just some insights in terms of what he's seeing on the marketplace. So let me introduce Carol to the stage. Carol, do you have any slides, or you're just happy to we'll pin your video and get you on stage virtually?
Yeah, yep, I do have a slide, which I'll most likely put up. Do I have do I have permission for that?
Sure you do.
Great, perfect. So, all right, let's start with a show of hands. Does everybody know how to do the hand feature? If you don't, that's okay. You can just lift up your hand. So since this is blended working, right? Let's have a show of hands of people who are either back at the office full time or are gonna be back at the office full time. Show of hands. Let's just kind of see. I want to see who's doing what. I'm not seeing any. Okay, cool. How about people that are either going to stay working at home or, you know, are like just stay working at home? Show of hands, stay working at home. Okay, we got 1, 2, quite a few people. So we have like the rest of you are going to be blended, right? So maybe there's 4 people. Hands up for blended. Are there 4 blendeds? Let's see. Patrick, I don't know. Atash, okay. So we don't know. So most people are going to stay at home. Good to know. Good to know. So my deal is I help people, like Sabine says, get more done in less time. And really what I have to say is this. While a lot of you are going to stay at home, perhaps there'll be a moment that you'll head out, right? And no matter what, whether you're, so for the recording, whether you're already back in the office, you're headed back to the office, whatever the case may be, here's what I want you to take away. Wherever my stuff is all about, it sounds easy, then you go to implement the thing and you go, aha, that's why Carol exists in the world, because it's not always as easy as it sounds. And here it is. You ready? Be where you are. So I want to show you something, and I'll give you some more tips in a second, but let me just share my screen, because I want to just give you a little visual here. When I say be where you are, what in the heck are you even talking about? So this is my like signature system that I walk people through. And as you can see, the third layer there, that's the productivity layer. So do you see on that productivity layer on the left-hand side, there's a piece of cake called Power Focus. Like that is one of those, they're all important, but that is the killer and also the secret sauce of productivity. It's all about being where you are. So here we are, we're in summer, right? Now, if you're in the Northeast United States, you would probably doubt it because it's been freezing here and it's been rainy and the whole thing. Of course, yes, last month it was like we're all going to die. We're in the desert, but welcome to global change, right? So, but here we are, we're in summer and people are going to be going on holiday, vacation, whatever you want to call it. Now, myself, I was on vacation last week. And what I noticed, here's the thing, even though you teach the stuff, doesn't mean you're going to do it all the time, right? So what I noticed is that I left my phone like far, far, far away. And I on purpose, like absolutely did not do any work, nothing, like absolutely none. At one point I was actually close to Canada, guys, believe it or not, many Canadians on this line. I was 3 miles away from Canada in like thousands of acres of woods. It was the coolest thing ever. That was definitely no phone concept there. Anyway, so here's what I noticed is I was able to focus on what mattered. Now, bringing that into the office, bringing that into your home office, your office, some combination of those things, that's the key, guys. That's what you want. Now, if it takes you going out to one of those, you see on Facebook, would you go to this, with no electricity, yada, yada, and everybody has their different ideas. Do it. Absolutely do it. Now, if you can't do it, what you want to do is just take your phone and put it in the car. Like, do not have that thing, because here's what happens is you get this like freneticness, and it's just kind of under your skin, because that focus is what gets you as a leader to be able to then receive whatever the tips and tricks of the world are, because there's a million of them out there. I mean, I've got mine. It doesn't matter. If you can't be focused, if you aren't sleeping well at night, if you're not meditating, all the rest of it, okay, that's a killer. If you got to go on vacation to do it, by all means do, and wait for those divine downloads to come on in, and you can do your whole body reset. Once you do that whole body reset, guess what? You're more productive, and you haven't even learned anything yet. Right. So that's kind of it for me. I'm just looking at my notes. Just wanted to say about that's the So 3 things. The most productive thing you can do is stay focused. Sounds easy, not that easy, right? The second thing is summer, absolutely be on holiday when you're on holiday. And third thing is remember that our body holds this energy, and it can be frenetic energy or it can be peaceful energy. And whatever we can do to stay in that peaceful energy and not in that freneticness, like getting more done in less time because we're going faster, not gonna have, that does not work. Time and time again, does not work. It may work for a short period of time. It's not gonna work for a long period of time. Okay, that's kind of it. Questions, comments, thoughts? I'd love to hear it. I got 1 more minute on my clock, but I'm not here to take up your time just for the heck of it. What do you got?
Thank you, Carol. This is awesome. I think really, really great reminder to be on vacation when you're on vacation. And it's really interesting because I find that even though you don't think that you're learning anything, you are. Just by letting go and releasing, you learn something. And being in nature, especially like you were, in that very remote wilderness, the world, the nature around us has so much to teach us. And we can all learn so much from that. So it's really, really important to disconnect in order to reconnect to the world around us.
Yes, absolutely. We need to slow down to speed up. And it's funny, I heard myself saying, gosh, we're in the middle of nowhere. And my older son said, we're in the middle of everywhere. This is what real life is like. Now, I understand not everybody has that opportunity. And the beautiful thing is I'm kind of dissing phones, but the truth is that phones are wonderful. We can listen to podcasts that have nature sounds, right? So there's ways to use our technology to our advantage. So yeah, that's what I'll say. Other questions, comments, thoughts, dilemmas? What's going on? What do you got? Don't all talk at once. Okay, Paul, what do you got?
Okay.
You got to unmute.
Carol, I was just going to say that what you were talking about struck me around building resilience, and how these sort of positive coping mechanisms, maintaining, the whole self and the body energy as a way to sort of proactively manage, your own ability to cope.
Yes.
And that it's a choice.
Yes. Right. There's a woman I work with who's a resiliency coach, and she's always talking about filling your well. How do you fill your well? So for me, that was how I say rivers are my serenity. The woods are like my playground. So that's me. And somebody else is going to have something else. And to know yourself, that's the bottom of that productivity success cake, right? It's all about sort of like, how do you get grounded? How do you sleep at night? How do you fill your body with that beautiful, food and water and supplements and so on? Sounds so easy, right? We hear it all the time, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is that's everything. It's everything. You can't receive the tactics. You can't think about strategy that's actually really going to work until you have that environment, you have your body all squared away, you have that environment layer, like the cake, think about the cake, right? And then you work on that productivity layer. So, okay. Well, I guess
awesome. Well, thank you very much, Carol. We're going to move along to our next speaker now and introduce to you Cliff Taylor. Cliff has been working in HR for quite a few years and will have a lot of insights into that whole environment and what we are all struggling through in terms of shifting to a new reality, a new working reality that's going to enable us to do this blended working in a way that serves everybody, including the businesses that we're working in. So Cliff, over to you.
Super. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. In 2003, I was working in the US and I got a career opportunity to move to Hong Kong, which was great. It's what I wanted to do. The only little trouble was that that's when SARS broke out. So my first call with the regional president, I was the regional HR person, or going to be, and my first call with the regional president, whose name was Rick, was how we dealt with this situation, which of course I was clueless about, but I knew how to ask questions. I say that because at the time, this was a total unknown. No one knew what was causing SARS, and there was lots of worry. And one of the things that I learned through that pandemic, knew that.
I think we did Cliff freeze? Yeah, okay. Sorry, Cliff, you've frozen here. We'll just get back to you in a second.
I guess that's one of the issues of remote working.
This is one of the issues of remote working. Things don't always happen in the way that you expect them to happen, and exactly right. So, and I think that, you know, over the past year and a half with our Zoom meetings and so on, we've all gotten used to so many different things happening in the background. You know, people walking across the background, babies screaming, yelling, you know, cats, dogs popping up for their interest. And then all of a sudden, you know, internet cut out or something like that. So let's just skip on to Jackie, and we'll come back to Cliff when he is back and joined us. So Sabine, you want to introduce Jackie?
Yes, sure. Okay, so Jackie Tilliard, so she says, you know, when those moments of self-doubt get in the way after a major life shakeup, well, imposter syndrome, mentor Jackie Tilliard helps people to get back on track with certainty, confidence, and credibility after even the most impactful career challenges. So, Jackie, are you ready? I'll pin you.
Let's fingers crossed that my Zoom doesn't cut out. I've gone through the other bit where I'm all zoomed out. I'm craving seeing people physically. So yeah, Zoom's kind of taken over business life for a long time, hasn't it? So good afternoon, everyone, and good morning if you're on the other side of the world. As Sabine said, I'm Jackie, and I have brought a slightly different twist to this topic in terms of my work. So my work as an imposter syndrome mentor helps people when they've got that inner critic stuff going on and they're starting to self-doubt and can I do this? But I also have another role which is very different to the mentor's role, and that's one of us as a funeral celebrant. And as you can imagine, over the past 15 months, I've been rather hectic with my work, particularly over here in the UK. And it's set me thinking about the element of, I think, something that's impacted most people from a work perspective, and that's of loss and isolation. So where we're working from home, thank goodness we've had Zoom and the like to help us to connect with other people. But when you've been used to working in an office environment or in a team environment, it becomes increasingly difficult to manage your time and your concentration when you're suddenly faced with working from home with all the demands that brings. Now, if you're a working mom, you've had to homeschool. Maybe you've had to do the same if you're a working dad too, with the kids constantly around and interruptions and daily life on top of a working daily life. So I wanted to put the spin on how do we come back from that piece of isolation? What is the impact of spending so much time at home and not being connected with people on a physical level? And what is that doing to your inner critic? Because I know for sure, even I have begun to self-doubt, because well, my whole social life ground to a halt as well. So up till March of 2020, I was an avid salsa dancer. I was out 2 or 3 times a week, keeping myself fit. That all went out the window. It's still out of the window, and fingers crossed for that to come back soon. But because I'd lost that, I wasn't exercising. Because I couldn't go out, Netflix took over in the evenings. And because I was sat in front of that, well, it's just not right to do that without popcorn and without snacks. And my weight gained considerably. And I know I'm not alone in this. So what is the impact of that happening if you have gained pounds because you've been wearing your casual clothes, your PJs maybe, doing your work from home, and all of a sudden you've got to go back into a blended situation, and maybe those pounds have increased and your business suit doesn't fit you anymore? How are you going to feel when you're in front of an audience once again? Does that hit your confidence levels? And it's interesting what Carol was saying earlier about it does begin and start and end with you. Your energy is everything. So when I deal with people coming to me with imposter syndrome, I guarantee that the core of the problem is partly distraction, all the stuff that's going on around where you've lost your focus, but ultimately it's because you've given your energy away to those things and not drawn it back into yourself. So one of the things I work with my clients when they're coming to me with not feeling good enough, feeling less than, worrying about criticism, is to work on the energetic resistance. Now, energetic resistance usually shows up with thoughts and belief patterns, also with things like emotional impact, and particularly if you are in a situation where right now your business has had to reform or restructure, you're having uncertainty about your role within an organization, or maybe you've even been frontline in terms of you've lost a loved one. So I know I've dealt with a lot of people who've been facing working from home. They've maybe lost a loved one to COVID. And how do we deal with the grief? How do we deal with the loss? We go back and work with our energy. How do I know this? Because my Annus Horribilis became in 2019. So prior to all of the lockdown and the restriction that brought, I actually lost 9 people out of my own life. And I know that the technique that I use with my clients now to help them with imposter syndrome actually helps to release the feelings of sadness, grief, feeling low self-esteem. And I went through the whole caboodle of feelings during that time in 2019, when it was a consistent, I lost my mother, my eldest uncle, my oldest school friend, and it really became quite impactful on my emotional health. So as I see it, the big retreat can be viewed in 2 ways. So the lockdown, I didn't talk about lockdown and COVID. I talked as an opportunity for us to reassess and really think about what were our priorities, what were the big things that were important for us, and to take that back out into the world when we re-emerge. So for me, blended working is understanding what makes you tick, as what are the authentic values, how can you put that back out into the world and bring out the best in yourself and within your teams and within your client base as well. So those are the things that are really, I think, key for me. But I'm happy to take questions as well. If anybody has questions, things they'd like to ask me about what happened during that very long 2 years. I'm glad we're coming out of it now.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That's so
Okay.
powerful. I mean, it is so true that when you're working from home, that you can really feel removed from everything and from everybody. And people that actually don't realize that they're kind of losing self-esteem. I mean, I myself have been a mom, and twice I've gone off maternity leave, and I realized in that time at home with children, it was very different going back to a work environment and fitting in again.
Absolutely.
So I really love what you were just saying there. It really hit home, and it now happened to everyone. Really, everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strange situation where I think I was one of the few in my local area where I was still going out to work. We had to go to the local crematoria to deliver funeral ceremonies, and it was so strange being out on the road on your own, and the roads were virtually deserted where I lived, and that felt odd. And then you come back in, and because I was dealing with this deeply grieving situation, and I describe it as triple grief, because not only were you dealing with a family who'd lost a loved one, they then were isolated further because they couldn't actually invite all of the people they wanted to the funeral, because we were restricted at times to just 10 people. And then you were holding that space of virtually empty room with just a few grieving family. How do you deal with that and then go back into your daily life afterwards? That is just an impossible situation. And even I, as much as I work on my energy, I struggled for some days, because some of the stories I had to tell of family situations were so sad. I had a double husband and wife funeral to do, just horrendous people who took their own lives because they couldn't deal with what was going on. That's a really hard space to hold, and thank goodness I had the techniques and processes available to myself, because I don't know what I would have done otherwise, and I'm quite a strong person. And what worries me as well is that, you know, there's quite high incidence of suicide rates, particularly in men, and they won't always open up because they don't do emotions. And how many people are now struggling at home, afraid to speak up about mental health? And I think it's really key that we address it, particularly, you know, if you're in HR, that you're mindful and you're supporting your teams as best you can to be able to access help and support, whether it's, you know, as Carol talked about, getting back out in nature, finding something that brings you joy into your life that you can weave into your everyday, so that you've got some release as part of your work day. I just think that is so key as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two questions here. So
Sure.
Tina asks, what about those that are loving being home and now having to go back to the workplace, dealing with others?
I've had numerous conversations with those. Well, do you know what? If it's available to you and your company is open to that opportunity, why not do that? If you're happy working from home and you can come to a compromise, I think it's actually to your advantage and the company's advantage, because a motivated worker produces far better performance and better results. So if you can get more stuff done at home, I personally agree with this. I've kind of always worked from home, because prior to me working for myself, I was in a sales team and I was a national account manager, so I was all over the country, but my office was always at home, and I actually didn't like being in the office. I found it very distracting. Far too many people asking you crazy questions, and I really prefer to work from home too, but it's become a habit for me now. But I think if that helps you to work better, have that conversation. One of the things I also talk about is energetic alignment starts with a quality conversation, and if you can openly have that conversation with your team and with your line head to have the flexibility to work from home, to be more productive, and put forward a really strong story for that, and as to why that's important for you, both yourself and the business, then I think that's a good way forward to do that.
Excellent, thank you. Another question.
Yep.
Patrick's wondering about your perspective on the absence of the relationship element of work from months of Zoom about work, and how
Yeah.
do you think people will react upon a return?
On a return, I think it's going to be interesting, because I know for myself, I'm even reticent now, because I've become so conditioned to staying socially distanced. If we're out and about somewhere and we bump into friends or somebody we know in the neighborhood, I still step back. My dad still won't hug me. So I'm really intrigued as to the dynamics of relationships with people. Some people are all for, yeah, I'm ready to hug you, I'm ready to shake your hand, but there is still this reticence, and I think people have become conditioned. And I think, again, it's inviting that open conversation about what feels acceptable, what feels right for you, and to slowly integrate into whichever workplace you're being in. I know for myself, you know, because we're still looking at infection rates being fairly high, despite me being vaccinated, even now, when I'm in an audience at a funeral, there is still there's more people coming in now. We can have up to 70 people at my local crematoria, but I don't want to shake hands with 70 people, because you just never know. So I think there'll be a piece of reticence, but there'll also be people who are willing to reconnect. It'll be interesting to see how social situations develop as well. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an avid dancer. I'm not sure how quickly I will go back into a city to dance in a local club, because I just don't know who's there. So it will bring a bit of hesitance, I think, and again that could cause issues which we need to address.
Yeah, I agree, Deck. I know exactly what you mean, because my
Yeah.
husband's been very anxious about things. I'm a bit more relaxed, and I would go and
Yeah.
you know, meet and greet people, but he's like, no, I'm not going, I'm coming. So it actually really creates a bit of tension, even within families, because they have different opinions and
Exactly.
different habits or let's say behaviors. And yeah, I think it will take quite a while to actually get everyone's I guess confidence back up
Definitely.
after this, and everyone will have a different timeline for that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they talk about in pets, don't they, having separation anxiety. I think that happened in humans last year. It will also have the reverse this year, where we'll still have the anxiety to reintegrate, and there'll always be the, you know, maybe the voice of suspicion will be also part of the inner critic that's going on. Have they washed their hands? Have they worn a mask in the appropriate environment? Are they abiding by the rules? What steps do I need to put in place? Is this safe? And you know, safety comes first in all situations. So it will be interesting to see what the impact of this is over the coming weeks and months, I think. And let's hope that we don't have to go back into a lockdown situation again, because there's all sorts of mutterings there. But I think it's, you know, it's about staying resilient. It's about staying physically and mentally strong with this, and recognizing the emotional aspect of energy and responding to that accordingly.
Perfect. Thank you so
You're
much,
welcome.
Jackie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
So, should we go back to Cliff? Because Cliff had a great incident that could be quite typical when it comes to blended working, losing the internet
Yes.
connection.
I was talking about control, and then immediately I lost all control. That was quite annoying, but also amusing and illustrative. What I was saying is, one of the lessons that we learned when I was in Hong Kong is that people didn't know where this, at the time, where the disease was coming from. But if everybody everywhere put out the hand sanitizers and masks, and those were two things that you could do to regain some control over an environment that was otherwise completely risky from what anyone could tell. And we've learned that in this pandemic as well, the face, hands and space thing as well. Although people have different views about it, those are objectively things that you can do to regain some control. So I would like to build a little bit on the theme that Jackie has been referring to, being remote and the emotional impact. I do think that one of the things I've learned as I've moved into coaching is to ask the question sometimes, when something is apparently negative, how can you make that an advantage for yourself or for your organization? Because things happen, and they will be good or bad depending on what you do with them as a result of them, generally speaking. And many people have found, as indeed has been already spoken, that working at home or working in the attic or where it is you're working can be quite liberating. Others have found that it's quite limiting because of home factors. And most people, I think, that I've spoken with have craved the social connection, and that's come up in the questions as well. And we are social beings. We're all on Zoom here together because we like to see and hear one another. So there are some things that are hardwired into us after many millennia of evolution. So my personal story during the pandemic is that I was planning to leave corporate life by the end of 2020. And that was accelerated for me in May when I was made redundant. So I tried to look upset because it just helped accelerate me along the way. In fact, it was a little bit upsetting because it wasn't in my control. It wasn't of my choosing. So I had to recognize that in myself and get over it. And then I thought, with a great opportunity. What I didn't realize, though, was that the mental side of, yes, working for yourself will be great, it's liberating, all of those things are true. There were many things that I didn't know about, really. And I've struggled inwardly, not enough outwardly, to find out how to connect in a world of digital connections and social media and so on. So I'm beginning to learn that a bit late in the game, but I have had some fantastic connections with people over the last year. I've really found that strange, and I could have done with being in the office with people to chat these things through, and I wasn't. I have had great people, including many on this call now, who I've been able to talk with about that. But I guess the point is twofold, really, or threefold. One is there is an illusion of control. We don't really control that much, but you can absolutely control how you respond to a situation. And if you're always looking for something constructive and let's say positive, if your mind is taken up with that, it's not going to be taken up with all the negative sides. And the other thing I wanted to add in, being a fairly recent former HR director working with senior leaders, I've spoken with a number of people who are in those leadership roles and are struggling with what to do. And I've asked them similar questions. You know, they're saying, should I let everybody back? Should I let them all go? And I've said, well, the answer is probably yes to all of those. So how can you turn this into an advantage for your business in many dimensions? Can you redefine work? One example, I was talking with a family member over the weekend. We suddenly realized that many disabled people can now work for corporations because they don't have to travel. And so what was going on before? Why were we not enabling that? And you can have an opinion about it. But the point is, it's now created an opportunity. My physiotherapist, I went to see 2 weeks ago, I was wearing my mask. He said, can you take it off? And I'd forgotten, he's deaf. So he wanted me to take it off so I could tell him what was going on. He had his mask on. But there are so many things that we can make assumptions about, and it's very important to ask. So I think previously, I think Carol was saying that many people have different ways of working. There may be times when we have to meet people in an office because we need a team meeting or whatever it might be. But so many things can be done in a different way. And I've really faced up with a few leaders who I've said to them, look, do you want people back in the office for productivity reasons, or do you just want to be seen to be the boss? You know, you're in the big corner office. Is your status deriving from being seen to be that, or what is it? Obviously, I only do that with people I know quite well, but you can sort of ask that question. And I think there's an element of that. And once people recognize that, I think you can get past it and find really new and creative ways to do things and utilize the skills of many, many more people, many, many more countries, and many, many more skills. So yes, we're collaborative social animals. We can do that in many different ways, probably every now and again together. But in many cases, it can be done remotely for long periods of time, and that will suit many people. And I think there's a real opportunity to redefine work on an individual basis rather than on a team basis, other than for certain things. So those are some of my thoughts and some of my reflections. But I'm still learning more than a year on of how to work for myself. I can be a tough boss. I can be sometimes too lack of boss, but I'm certainly not all-knowing. And that's what I've realized a little bit is to reach out to other people. There you go. I never used that term, reach out, but there I did. So you can learn anything, I guess. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Cliff.
Well, comments.
I'm glad to have you back. And this is the norm, right? We don't have control. We don't even have control over our tech. It's nice to have it at one point or another, but things change along the way. So yeah, if anybody has questions, please add them to the chat. And in the meantime, I'm going to pop us on to the next speaker, Dr. Paul Snowden, who will continue the conversation, but continue to ask questions, even of the previous speakers in the chat, and we will get to them as we move along here. So I'm going to introduce Paul. Thank you very much, Cliff. That was awesome, as always. Great conversation. So Dr. Paul Snowden is a specialist in helping make theory work in business, in organizations, and so on. Right now, we have a lot of theory about the blended working environment, what the new normal is going to look like. And it's all about how do we make that actually work. So looking forward to the insights that you have on that, Paul, for our audience here. So over to
How's
you.
everybody doing? Nice to meet you all. Hopefully I don't have internet issues and glitch out or anything like that. Great conversation so far, and yeah, I wouldn't mind trying to bring maybe some of the research that I've been doing recently about what's going on in the workplace and connecting it with some of the themes that have already emerged, and there's remarkable connections and evidence that's starting to come forward. But maybe I thought I'd first start with a question. You know, and maybe you can write the answer in the chat box here. What percentage of the employees in an organization do you think are engaged, fully actively committed to the work they do? What percent do you think that would be? Andrew says 15, Carol 20 to 30, Tina 30. Well, recently 10 to 15 from Patrick, Tina 25, Jackie less than 10, Angie 30. Well, one of the data points that we can start to use or take a look at is the Gallup organization in the US studies this regularly. Their most recent data shows only 39%, which basically means that, you know, almost 6 out of every 10 employees are not fully engaged at work. And so this obviously is a huge opportunity in a productivity gap that needs to be bridged. One other little pop quiz kind of question, and there's different studies in different parts of the world, in the UK or the US. What percentage of workplace health issues do you think are related to mental health? So stress, anxiety, depression, what percentage of those health issues represent? Tina says 80, 75, yeah. Well, it's interesting. The two studies that I was looking at was between 44 and 50% of the issues at work are mental health related. So, which is a staggering number. And one other little data point before I talk about some evidence that I'm seeing in the workplace with my research. What do you think the cost that a company bears in terms of administering programs for mental health? On a per employee basis, what do you think it'd be? Who says it's less than £1,000 per person? If you think it's less than £1,000 per person, put a 1 into the chat. If you think it's less than 2,000 per person, put a 1 in the chat. And if you think it's more than 2,000, put a 3 in the chat. Jackie's saying 2, Cliff's saying 3, bunch of 3s. Well, a Deloitte study has pegged it at just over £1,600 per person per year, just focused on mental health. So not total employee health, but just dealing with the mental health side of things. And so this is all real. And another stat, you know, 62% of employees want to be more resilient. Employees want to be more resilient. They want to be better employees, to have that opportunity at work. And yet the question that starts to show up is, well, why is that happening? Why is there so much mental health issues at work? Why is it that people want to get better and yet we can't? And I guess the perspective I would bring on this as I start to transition into some of my work is that part of the problem when we start to look at what happens in organizations is that we are treating it at, and yes, every individual is experiencing these issues, but when you see these systemic issues across countries, across organizations, of the number of people that are dealing with mental health issues, what that says to me is that yes, the individual is the one feeling the brunt of the problem, but the problem itself does not resolve or reside at the level of the individual. It resides at the level of the system. The system and the teams the culture that's within the organization creates the conditions where the individual is impacted. And this is moving across different organizations. So I recently did a study here in Canada looking at leadership during COVID. And I examined and did interviews with 3 different organizations, different sectors, different sized organizations. And I thought I'd share a little bit about what I learned and what it might mean for leadership, what it might mean for employees, and how they can actually find a way to a more engaged and fulfilling work life. The 3 organizations that I looked at, one was a telecommunications company, one was a university, and one was a small manufacturing company. 2 of the 3 organizations saw employee engagement increase during this time. 1 of the 3 saw employee engagement plummet. And the differences between these organizations was pretty stark. The first thing that organizations that were really successful did is they created a purpose that was greater than themselves for people to commit into. They realized, and conversely, the manufacturing company that failed to do this focused exclusively on preserving the firm, self-preservation. The organizations that did well shifted the focus of their efforts. Rather than an inward self-preservation way of looking at the world, they looked outward and said, how do we create and solve a problem that's bigger than ourselves? I'll give you a real example. So the telecommunications company created a rallying point around 2 fundamental principles. Keep our people safe, keep our customers connected. It wasn't about be the most profitable telecommunications firm. It wasn't about increased shareholder value, none of that stuff. It was all about an external, outward-oriented view of what success would be. The university, they created a different lens, which was around creating leaders with heart, that is what they were meant to do. It wasn't about, improving student satisfaction. It wasn't about, employee retention or anything like that, or getting new students to join. It was all about creating a mission, a purpose that was greater than themselves. Conversely, the manufacturing company that they worked on, all their focus was around profitability, survival, financial survival of the firm. And not surprisingly, all of the choices that each of these organizations made aligned with the purpose that they were, or the problem they were trying to solve. Not surprisingly, those problems, those organizations that were trying to solve something greater than themselves, operationalized that choice in a very different way. They operationalized their choice in a way that allowed people's creativity and problem-solving ability to be focused on something other than the worries that they have right now, and on a mission that they could align around. They had a North Star, so to speak, that people rallied around. Whereas the manufacturing company was in a cost-cutting mode and was doing everything they could to shed employees. Now, the employees that stayed in that manufacturing company felt great, but the employees that were left, that were let go, obviously had felt like they were ill-served by that organization. Employee engagement went up as a result of how the organizations in the university and the telco went about creating and living through their purpose. Employee engagement went down in the manufacturing company. The manufacturing company, when they brought people back to work as order volume, as they picked up some orders, they brought people back to work. Guess who came back to work? The people who had no better options, who had no other choices, not their top performers, their medium and low performers were the ones that came back to work at the manufacturing company. The people who had choices, the employees who had been treated poorly and left, didn't come back. what happens now in this spiral of downward spiral of productivity and ineffectiveness in that manufacturing company. You're bringing people back because you've got more revenue, you've got more orders coming in, but the people who have come back, the business has changed, the processes have changed, and the people who have come back are the least equipped skill-wise and capability-wise to achieve that goal. And so more overtime is spent, management has to be more involved. And unfortunately, this yo-yo effect of order volume release, order volume let go of people, as that moved through, the employees in that manufacturing company were let go continuously. The upside, I suppose, the manufacturing company did survive, but barely. The other two organizations, for the university, they saw enrollments go up 20% because they focused on their people and how to operate their people. And the telecommunications company saw them hit their financial numbers even during this pandemic. So maybe a couple sort of larger lessons to share from this. One of the things that shifted in those successful cases, and we kind of heard it through with what Jackie talked about, Carol talked about, and Cliff talked about, they shifted how they managed power. The traditional hierarchical power over people, that's what the manufacturing company did. That's not what the telecommunications company and what the university did. They shifted from power over to power with, and created power within their people. They did that by how they systematically rallied the organization around a goal that was other-centric, not self-centered. Whereas the manufacturing company did the complete opposite. And this shift in power and how you bring people together, how you build trust, how you build psychological safety, this is the key to creating high-performing teams. And in those two cases, they created a daily cadence, and I only asked two questions. Are the choices we're making today moving us towards keeping our customers connected and keeping our people safe, or making our students leaders with heart? Is the choice we're making today, and they decompose this at the frontline employee level, middle management and upper management, and they maintained a rhythm within their business to answer those questions every day. If the answer was yes, then whatever the decision was that the employee came forward with, or the idea that the employee came with, they prioritized and then implemented in priority sequence. If the answer was no, they didn't do it. And if the answer was maybe, they evolved the idea, kicked it around a little bit more by involving the people so that they felt empowered. This was your point, Cliff, right? About not having that locus of control. They created the situation where if it wasn't a direct yes, they worked it with the team so the team could find a way to make it a yes or a no, either to expand the idea or break it apart so that there was something that was clearly a yes or a no. And this creates engagement. But it takes the trust and the psychological safety of the leader to relinquish power, to realize they don't have to have the answer, and to create the conditions where the team is allowed to develop an answer and to learn through the process of developing an answer, implementing it, and refining it, to move into that cadence of iteration. And so I know we're getting near the end, but if I could leave just a couple thoughts, it would be very much around looking at the conditions that the leaders create so that they can systematically engage people. And to realize that the incentives that need to be in place, the metrics that need to be in place, de-emphasizing those metrics that create conflict in an organization, having that North Star that is other-centered, not self-centered, having daily conversations with their people around how can we move towards the North Star, and then trying and implementing the best ideas quickly such that trust and psychological safety is not only created, but strengthened through this iterative process. And if the leaders look at an organization as a system and treat the parts and the whole collectively, then employee engagement can go up and great things happen. So those would be a few of my thoughts and ideas to share. And I'll take any questions a few people have, and or back to Sabine and Sharon for a wrap.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. We probably, right at the end, we're going to take some more questions in a minute. I just want to thank everyone and just summarize before everyone needs to head off. I just wanted to get Sharon back onto the slide. Yeah, and then we'll have some 2-3 minutes just to go through the comments as well and any other questions for any of the speakers that we've heard from today. So thank you so much to all the amazing experts. We've heard from Carol Williams about disconnecting, re-energizing and connecting with nature, and allow yourself to be on vacation when you say you are, and maybe just take that put that mobile phone somewhere else, and not thinking that you have to actually just be there and always respond there and then. Then we had Jackie Tillier to talk about the impact of the pandemic in home working. And one of the things that I've taken away is that obviously there is a big impact. Not only people have lost their obviously the space or the opportunity to connect with others, but obviously there was a lot of loss and grief with illnesses, with death in families, and the loss of self-esteem there as well. So that was a really good contribution there. And we've moved over to Cliff Taylor, who was talking about that control is an illusion, but your responses are actually in your control. And meaning, how do you respond to the pandemic, to this uncertainty, and coming out on top after and sort of regaining the confidence. And Dr. Paul Snowden very clearly has made it really sort of rounding it all up and bringing it all together with some case studies that he's actually worked with a few different organizations who dealt with the COVID situation in different ways, but the ones that come out on top have been able to really align around a mission, a common mission, and get that engagement from their employees. And really they were able to not only do that, but also retain their great talent, because they actually were not just leading with numbers, but leading through with heart and really align themselves with the workforce. And that they did this obviously by listening to people every single day, by coaching them through the situations and really supporting them through this uncertainty. And I think I could have not said it any better, because it just leads us right into what we actually do at the Empowerment Portal, because now you have seen a few of the experts that work with us in the portal. We have put together a range of online and offline resources that can really help whole teams, whole organizations. And we really believe that in order to really pivot successfully and coming out of the pandemic, especially, we need to empower people. Empowerment is absolutely key. And this is where we have actually created this pool of resources and services to help organizations to pivot successfully and grow and navigate through these current challenges. And we're talking remote working, or nowadays it's hybrid, blended working, mental wellness, physical wellness, employee engagement. We're talking about productivity and perhaps how we can create some sort of new normal and going back to some bit of certainty and gaining self-confidence again. So what we do in the portal, we partner with HR to identify current gaps. We shape a roadmap together with your organization and support you with the rollout and build out tailored campaigns with you. Now, in order to get some more information, it's probably just easiest just to book a call with us and see whether we might be able to support you, potentially, become a strategic partner and help you and HR in specific shape that new normal together with your greatest assets, which obviously are your employees. So I would like to thank all of the speakers and all of you who are here live. And if you're watching the replay, Thank you so much for coming along, and I hope you've gotten some really great golden nuggets out of this session. We have 5 more sessions over this summit, which will be held at 7 p.m. tonight. We're going to talk about conscious leadership. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. 2 p.m. we're talking about holistic well-being. 7 p.m. we're talking about retaining talent in organizations. And then on Thursday, there are 2 HR forums, which are open forums where we talk about how to empower people now. And again, they're going to be happening at 2 p.m. and at 7 p.m. They're all British summertime. There is a timetable. If you're registered, obviously you will get the emails and the reminders as well. So I'm going to stop the recording here. And if there's any more questions, feel free